New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. And hello, dear ones. Here's Reverend Robert forgetting to turn off the banner. Rev Robert over here with you.
Rev Z right here.
And Reverend Donna.
And this is New Thought Today on the New Thought Media Network. It comes to you every Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. Thank you for being with us. Yes, it is Special Guest Day. Now, you notice, folks, that we've been having a lot of special guests lately, and we're going to continue that over the coming weeks. And, well, looking at the schedule, next couple of months, you can count on us having a special guest and a special topic and really digging into our whole premise of how does the New Thought philosophy serve humanity's evolution, the future of spiritual experience, spiritual living, and where we're going in the world. So we want to thank Rev Donna for being with us today, and we're going to share a whole bunch about who she is and what she is. But before we do that, I want to say hello to Rev Z. Good morning, sir. Afternoon, sir. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Glad to be here with Reverend Donna and get my mind expanded on all the things that she's doing, and just loving life.
Yes. And Reverend Donna, we do have a little bit of echo coming through, so we're going to ask you to maybe turn down your speakers just a little bit and see if that might help the audio sound for those that are watching out in Facebook and YouTube land. For those that are watching, thank you for being with us. Please feel free to join in the conversation. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, let your friends know what we're doing. If you have a question today, by all means, go ahead, put it in the chat box, and we'll be happy to address those things. And so here's our whole premise for today. Reverend Donna is a United States veteran, and I'm sorry, I forget which branch of the military you served in.
Army.
Army, okay. And I found you've been at this a while now, it seems, as far as bringing the New Thought philosophy into what I call veteran support or veteran recovery. And we'd love to have you tell us a little bit more about what got you started in this field, other obviously than being a veteran yourself. But what was the real big call to focus your ministry in this direction, rather than following perhaps a more traditional path of heading down towards a physical center and a in-person type community?
Well, having been deployed all over the world and knowing what it's like to come back and not feel like you're back to yourself, your normal self, whatever that is. When I was in ministerial school, Reverend Christian Sorensen kept saying, you need to do a focus ministry with military vets. You need to keep doing that because you're going to bring that specialty, that expertise. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And it took me a while, but when I finally settled down and said, yes, this is what I'm going to do, I was really called back to Sierra Vista. And I have been working with vets for like the last 5 years, and it has been the most amazing process, experience, whatever you want to call it. It's just been really lovely.
Beautiful. And your organization is called Graceful Passages for Vets. I've got another typo there. Graceful Passages for Vets.
Right.
And so tell us a little bit more of how you came to that name and how we came to that.
Well, it's when we come back from being deployed, it's kind of like a crazy transition. So coming out of the military, you're trying to find the easiest transition from being in the military to being civilian. So what came to mind for me is that graceful transition for vets from military life to civilian life, whatever that looks like for them. And that really just struck my heart because I know how hard it was for me because I served 32 years. So that's all I knew from the age of 17 until 50. Military is all I know. And these young kids that came out, they really don't know a lot and they're getting out and they don't really have their parents to help them. So we're trying to help them gracefully ease into whatever they want to create for their life, for their next life. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting point right there because I was never in the full military, but I was in the ROTC in college and I missed my first 2 years. So I had to go to Fort Knox to basic training to make up for those 2 years to come back and get in the ROTC program. And
Right.
so I when I think about just the short experience I had of going through basic training, and it was probably a modified basic for officer candidates. But to think that someone would go through that for 3 years or 32 years, right? And it's definitely a different structure. It's a different communication style. It's a different way of everything. And to come back into society and be used to that or be ingrained in that could create some real challenges and stress points.
It is very challenging. And a lot of kids who don't, I highly recommend getting involved in community activities before you get out of the military to make it easier to transition. And some people do that and some people don't. But the outside doesn't really understand what you did and they don't understand the structure. And, once you take off your uniform, you're taking off an identity because you have instant identity with that uniform. And once it comes off, it's really hard to find your new tribe.
Yeah. I would imagine it's a lot like professional athletes that when they stop being professional athletes and they don't have that environment around them, however it's defined, they begin to feel doubtful about this body or whatever, or the mind, and say, "Ooh, who am I now?"
That's exactly right. They got to discover, okay, who am I? What am I going to do? And how am I going to create my new life?
For me, and I think this is probably true for so many people, we grow up and vets are always the older generation. And I forgot along my journey that at some point I became the older generation. That now now today's vets are younger than I am. And so, and I think it's important the point you're touching on, don't necessarily have the experience of civilian world, of civilian life, and have come of age in a different structure. I'm not a military guy, never have been, so wouldn't even pretend to understand what that transition might be like. I imagine you're working with a lot of younger folk these days that are experiencing that similar experience, that situation.
Well, really, I'm working with older and younger and a little bit in between because the younger kids, a lot of them came from not so good families. So they're now trying to create the family that they really want, the family that they thought they should have had growing up. The older generation has lost everybody in their family and is kind of lost because they don't know what they're going to do next or who's going to help them at the end. And and they're going through a lot of trauma from being in the military. So it's interesting to see that we have the balance of the older and the younger really trying to find their place in society.
Wow.
Yeah.
That and it just hit me there that, I don't know, and you probably already have this in your program where once people are over their basic trauma, if you will, and beginning to rebuild, to get some mentorship, okay? Because because I'm just thinking when you just said that, the older vets, they have, a lot of them have the sense of family and all of that because of their age and what pulled them into the military, whereas the younger ones may have gone for other reasons, and they may be able to help each other bridge that gap with just some basic spiritual teachings or practices and their experience from both ends. I mean, it's great.
Exactly. And that's what we're doing at the Healing Center, is having a place for them to have a safe sanctuary, be a place to socialize and see how to reconnect with what they've lost or what they need to find, or how to get over addiction, how to get through trauma, and how to get housing and how to get a job. So it's just one of those things that you don't even think about. You see these guys on the street and you don't even think that they're looking for a place to live or a job or a family. You know, it's really kind of difficult at times. Yeah.
It definitely seems to have become very easy for people, and I hear this sentiment a lot, and I know I've fallen into it at times, that if you see someone out on the street panhandling, it's just boom, must be a drug addict, must not be a good person, and it isn't always that. No. Oftentimes it is our members people that have served this country in great and glorious ways, and then are left kind of high and dry, it seems. A lot of times.
And that's the truth. And, you know, the trauma that they experience, they don't know how to heal from that trauma. You know, and a lot of these guys want to remain homeless because they don't want the responsibilities, and they don't want to do anything but just try to heal themselves. And until they can heal that part of themselves where they can go back to work and can get into more structure, they just stay on the streets and do exactly what you say, panhandle and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Donna, give us a little bit of an overview. How do vets find you? How do they get to your organization? And once they find you, how are you able to support them? How do you bring them? How do you identify what's first steps, second steps? Give us a little overview of how your ministry works.
So I work in the Warrior Healing Center. We have 51 nonprofits in our office, in our building. So they come in, they do an intake, and sometimes they'll come in crisis. So they'll call me to the front desk. I'll bring them in and I'll start talking to them and finding out what is it that they need or what can we help them with. So they can get housing, lodging, a job, food, all of that good stuff. But a lot of the guys come in and they're afraid to talk to somebody. So they'll come in and talk to me and say, this is what I'm experiencing. And I said, I have a new modality that I'm using. It's called tapping, or EFT. And we use that to help them work through the trauma, work through what's going on, the stress, the depression, whatever. One lady, example, she couldn't drive on the freeway anymore. So we started tapping. And one day she said, you know, she normally has her son. We have a highway that goes to I-10, and then you get on I-10 and go off to Tucson and Phoenix. She said, I just couldn't do that. So we started tapping. And she got in her car one day with her son, was chit-chatting, got up on the highway, got to Phoenix, which is 3 hours away, and finally realized, I'm driving on the highway. And that's what this helps them do, is just clean up all of that and get rid of whatever the trauma has been hanging in with them. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I know, you know, you mentioned the technique, the tapping, the emotional freedom technique. And I know a little bit about it. I know it's kind of a mix of psychology, if you will, and Chinese acupuncture. Some describe it that kind of way. I'm sure it has many different description, but that's how I know it, which, you know, that help, you know, just looking at the Chinese acupuncture system by itself and understanding the philosophy about being centered and overcoming issues, and then with modern psychology, and then with religious science there as part of that, I think that sounds like a great you know, tripod for the vets to be able to work with. They can get some physical medicine, if you will, or relief. they can get some psychological stuff, and they can get some spiritual principles to work with as they go through all of this.
So what we do, we first start with tapping. We have a quick meditation, and then we go through what's really bothering them. And so what I like to incorporate is the positive. You're enough. You're worthy. You know, you deserve this. And when they get all that mixed in, because you are tapping on the acupuncture points, you're clearing up all that bad energy. And when you finally come to the end and know that you're more than enough, you're more than worthy, and you know there's nothing to stop you, they're like, wow, that is amazing, and I didn't realize I deserved whatever. And it's just incredible. It's really incredible. So some of our older vets have problems with nightmares because of what they experienced in Vietnam. And I was telling Robert, this one guy came to me, and every time he thought about those experiences, he would start shaking and go into seizures. So working with him really, really slowly, he finally came out of that, and he had so much peace that he could sleep through the night, and he could talk about things and all of that. And he just felt so peaceful with himself that he transitioned to the next adventure because he was at peace. He couldn't do it before, but he finally was at peace with himself and at peace with his own mind, body, and soul, so he could move on. And that was just like, wow, this really blows me away.
And you know, it's interesting because you know you're talking about, and I would imagine there might be some difference between vets who've seen combat and those who have just been, that they haven't necessarily made, they may have been in a support role, but they've been at attention for so long that the stress is there.
Well, when you're deploying, you're getting on that C-131 or the C-140 or C-17 or whatever big cargo. You have no idea what's on the other side. And even during peacetime, every time we got on the aircraft and we were going to go support somebody, you're like, what's going to be on the other side? And you're just so built up with stress. And then you get over there and it's either really good or it's really not so good. So yeah, just the fact that you're deploying is stressful enough. And then when you come back from that, all that build up stress, because you're just on stress for 24/7, however long it is, you don't know how to unwind it. So I'm teaching these guys how to unwind all that stress. Yeah,
that is amazing. And I mean, just look, I know your organization is dealing with veterans, but I can imagine what it's going to be like for a lot of the residents in Ukraine who, you know, who are under that type of stress now. They're going to need some same kinds of treatment, I would imagine.
Exactly. Because you have to process the trauma. You know, I've worked with little kids in school with being bullied, and teaching them how to tap to get rid of all of that. And that's what you'll have to do, is learn how to process the trauma in a healthy way instead of alcohol and drugs, which a lot of people do. And we try to get them out of that and get them into a healthier environment and a healthy way to process all of that trauma.
I think that might be the catchphrase for the coming decade. It processing the trauma. And
absolutely.
And I think especially with veterans and warriors, it was something we weren't allowed to talk about. And again, in the outsider perspective, well, you went to war, you handled war. What's the problem handling this thing, or trafficking, or or an argument at the gas station or in a supermarket? I have personally been awakened to it's a much different and much more deeply rooted concern that we've got to be able to deal with here. And so processing trauma is a place we're all going to be playing, folks, and we all got to understand it a bit more. So and so help us there. If somebody that doesn't know better, is in an experience or engaged or finds himself engaged with someone that is experiencing a level of PTSD or is having an acute crisis on the streets, what can we do? And what shouldn't we do?
So the first thing, you should just try to get them to breathe and just say, hey, I'm here for you. Tell me your story. And it's amazing, just by saying, tell me your story, you know, they start off a little uncertain. And then once they start telling the story, it just comes. This is what I went through, and this is what I've done. And some of them says, you know, I really can't talk about it. And then you tell them, okay, I get that. I know there's plenty of places for you to go, so you can talk about it. Go to the VA. Who else is in your area that can help you? Is there, you know, somebody that deals with PTSD? So that's one of the things. But initially, you just want them to get, hey, I'm here for you. Tell me what's going on and tell me your story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing.
Wow. Yeah, and that's I'm sorry, Robert. That, you know, that's key, because everybody has a story, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes people say, "Oh, nobody want to hear your story." So, you know, telling that story it's sometimes what's needed to release the pressure. But now, you know, if we don't give anyone, especially our vets, an opportunity to explain, if you will, or tell their story. I feel this way because I had to deal with XYZ in a military zone that I can't even describe to you. You know, it gives them, it's crazy to say legitimacy, because that's definitely not the word, but for lack of a better word, it allows them to explain themselves so people can really see them and say, look, you don't understand this.
Right. And just saying, hey, look, I see you, I feel you, but I really want to hear your story. I'm a safe sanctuary, so I'm here for you. Wow. And just by saying those few words, it's amazing. They'll either break down and cry, and they'll say thank you, or they're just like, you know, I'm not ready to tell you my story, but thank you for asking. And that makes them, they can walk away feeling better about themselves. Somebody really cared. Somebody asked. Somebody said that they cared about me. And so that makes all the difference. It really does. You just don't know.
This is one of the themes that emerges in this show, folks. If you watch up a number of our episodes, you're going to hear us say again and again and again, we've got to be able to listen. Yes. And listen, not just to content, not just for the story and the shock and, oh my God, you did what, but to listen for those deeper meanings and the deeper hurt that is often associated with it. As you were speaking, Donna, I flashed on this, how life would be so much better if the innocent bystanders that stand around with a video camera filming people who are misbehaving in public, how much better of a society we would be if we put down the phone and said, hey, I get it. You're upset with this cashier, this fast food worker, but tell me what's going on. So we can and truly listen rather than just, oh, you must be a Karen, so I'm just going to video.
Exactly. Well, you know, the program, What Would You Do? And in that situation, and they have all these different scenarios, and you're just like, wow, people step up or they don't. Right. So it's just a matter of stepping up. You know, we're all that we have. There's no one else. There's just us. And when you take care of someone else, they pay it forward. You know, and that's what it's all about, is just paying it forward. I don't need you to say thank you, but it's nice that you do. But I just want you to be better. I just want you to have a better life. So, you know, because it's tough enough as it is.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Exactly. Hey folks, if you wonder what you stumbled into, this is New Thought Today on the New Thought Media Network. I'm Rev Robert. My co-host Reverend Z is here today, and we've got a special guest and a special friend, Reverend Donna Smith, with us from Graceful Passages for Vets. We're going to take a real quick break and let you know about some of the other things that we're involved with and give everybody a chance to take a breath and a sip of water. We'll be back in just about a minute. Please stay with us. Check this video out, and remember, hit the like and share button. Let some friends know what we're talking about here today. If you know of some vets that might appreciate this, please share this with them now live or after the fact as a rebroadcast. You can always catch our back episodes in our archive. But stick around. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more of New Thought Today. And we're back with more of New Thought Today here on the New Thought Media Network. Our special guest today is Reverend Donna Smith. She's out of Southern Arizona and part of the Graceful Passages for Vets organization. And Reverend Donna, before we got started, you were sharing with me a little bit of the future vision for your organization. We're talking about getting some property and putting up some tiny houses. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So we have a big homeless problem here, like everybody else does, but we're looking at how can we eliminate, alleviate, lighten up the load of all these vets being homeless. And we're looking into buying some property and putting up tiny homes so that we went from 9 homeless vets to 3 weeks ago to 35 homeless vets. People are coming in from other states because they're finding out through word of mouth what we're doing for the vets. So we want to put them in safe environments and then take them to getting them a job, getting them permanent housing, getting them permanent places to live and things like that. So we're looking at doing that somewhere out. This county is as big as Rhode Island, so we have plenty of property to look at.
Wow. Well, you know, that's amazing, because I saw something, I guess a week or two ago on CBS, and they're doing some experimenting with tiny houses and houses for underserved families, where they're building these houses with 3D printers.
Yes.
And they can make them very cheap. They can make them very sturdy and hit all the bustles. All the buzz whistles, efficient and economical and everything, and at a fraction of the cost.
Exactly. So there's different kinds, and there's one that collapses down to a flat little square. You pull it up, you open it up, and you have a house. So there's all kinds of innovation coming out of the different hurricanes. They've learned so much about, trailers aren't the thing. but these little boxes that open up to provide temporary shelter very quickly. I mean, you could put 100 of them on a semi and have 100 homes in no time at all. I know it's amazing what's coming out. Yes. So we're looking at all those different things.
Amazing. Folks, if you've got land in Arizona, let's get you hooked up with the Reverend Donna, because there's tax write-offs there. And again, you're doing that good work of what I love about this is not only are you a minister and not only do you have all that training, but you have that background and that relatability, I'm sure, that goes a mile. Because as I've been saying, I can't walk in those shoes. But you've walked in those boots. You've stood alongside men and women that not only have endured, but been healed from this.
Right.
I think we'd love to hear a couple more examples of some of the folks you've been able to help and some of the healings that have happened through the work you've been doing.
So it's amazing, it's different with men than it is with women, because women will come in and they'll get the help, but guys are a little hesitant. So one guy came in one day and he says, I'm having these kind of issues. And so he says, all I want to do is just talk it through right now. So we just talked it through, and I let him tell me his story and just guide him just ever so gently through, okay, what about this? And what do you think about that? And he figured out just by virtually talking to me how to fix his issue. I was just there to be that sounding board. And that's really what I've noticed is they just need someone to hear them, hear what's going on with them, and help them find that solution. And once they find the solution, it's like they bounce out of my office and they're really, really happy. And they're like, I've got my solution. Right. So a couple of guys have come in and said, I really don't want to work for somebody. I want to do something else. So I ask them, what is in your heart? What's your passion? So we'll talk about their passion. And I'm like, then why don't you be an entrepreneur? Sit back and they're like, I never thought of that. And I'm like, yeah, you could do it yourself. Be your own boss. Go out there and do it. And sure enough, they've set up their own business, and now they've got their own business going along and doing really well. And they too are helping vets. So it's just paying it forward constantly. But again, it's just about listening and hearing what they have to say and how can I help you? And by listening to them, I can say, here's something I can suggest. One of the biggest things I suggest right off the bat is for them to read the 4 agreements. Mm-hmm. They come back after reading that and they're like, this changed my life. And I said, absolutely. And that's where we start.
Wow.
That's where we start, because parents told them they're worthless. School teachers told them that they're worthless. Other people have told them they're terrible. But once they read that book, they're like, that was not the truth. And I'm like, that's absolutely right. It wasn't the truth. So you get to find the truth and you get to say what the truth is. And that's really important, is being able to find their voice, step into it and say, this is my truth.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's so important, that you start with the 4 agreements, because those agreements really set the stage, not making assumptions and be impeccable with your word. And, the things that they've really learned in the military, but they used it in a different kind of way. And now they kind of have to shift it a little bit. So they're already equipped with what they need. Is just the perspective that they have to change a little bit and get rid of the stress and trauma, obviously.
Exactly. So they, telling the truth, it's something different now. You get to tell the truth about who you are, because you're going to say who you are. You get to say. Nobody's determining it for you. You get to say. You're not tied to, I'm a 35 Echo, or I'm an infantry guy, or I'm this. You get to say who you are. And that's been very empowering.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
New Thought for me, it's always been a combination of both spiritual, personal responsibility,
Right.
but it's also personal empowerment and thus personal freedom.
Right.
And I'm sure a lot of guys come home with varying levels of self-judgment around what maybe they had to do, and are trying to justify that, yeah, I did it for, I had to do that. That wasn't really. This is a great avenue, it seems, to help them understand that personal responsibility is nothing if it doesn't lead us to the personal freedom that we're seeking.
Exactly.
For agreement sounds like a great way to start it.
It is.
You got me taking notes over here, Reverend Donna, because I'm like, oh boy, that's what it's right there. No, I'm gonna have to get your number and call you.
Call me.
Because there's some ideas that are popping off in my head that, if we say we are an organization that want a world that works for everyone, a world that works for all,
right,
we have to start putting there's no a solution or mechanism to make someone whole regardless to size. I mean, I guess what I'm trying, whether if I set something up that works with 10 people, or you have something that working with 10,000 people, the more people we can get to be whole, the better. And I'm inspired right now.
And what's interesting is the guys that I have a PTSD group, and they come and they just tell their story. But what's interesting is they also are telling their friends, and then they bring their friends in. And then, they're kind of skeptical. Everybody's always skeptical because I'm like, I'm not the little fairy with the wand or the fairy dust to make you whole. You get to do that the way you want to do it. And they take a step back, and that's the biggest thing, is they get to do what they need to do for themselves. They don't have to, there's no cookie cutter. So we threw that cookie cutter a long way. Yeah. And all that trauma that you brought in, you need to put that on a boat to China, because you don't need to keep it here. So yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
I would have to think also some of the behaviors you see are defense mechanisms.
Exactly.
Are way these guys and gals are trying to keep themselves from being too exposed, or from feeling that pain to too great of a degree, and so you're alleviating the need for the defense mechanism,
right,
which then opens us up to a realization of what's possible, what's available to us.
Exactly.
You said before we got started today, you said that now you've been a ministry doing this 3 years, 5 years, is it now?
5 years.
5 years. And in that time, I think you said you've connected with, served 13,000 veterans?
1,300. We started out with about 200, and we have grown to 1,300 vets.
Wow. That is still amazing numbers. I get an extra zero, and I guess I'm envisioning where you'll be in a few more years. Yeah, but like even 1,300 is an amazing number of people to be able to touch for a ministry. You don't have a website. You're solely on word of mouth and a Facebook profile.
Right.
And you're getting an increase of people. How has that been able to allow you to expand what you're doing? And how many other people have you been able to bring in, or other organizations are you able to partner with at this time?
So like I said, we have 51 organizations in our building, but we also partner with organizations that are outside our building, such as DAV, the Disabled American Veterans, the VFW, the American Legion. We have the Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association, who escort everyone who's at the military funerals. We have the American Legions that escort the military funerals. We are so connected in this. This is a military town, because Fort Huachuca is the home of the Military Intelligence School. And that's where this is my first duty station back in 1974. So this place has grown, and the more you talk about people and the more you connect, it just spreads like wildfire. And there is no one in this town that doesn't know who we are. And that's the coolest thing. And we get people come down from Phoenix and Tucson just to check us out.
And you guys were talking about the numbers of who you've helped in 5 years, and some, just to put that in perspective, that's like 260 people a year, or every week you are helping 5 different people for 5 years on average.
Yes.
That's saying a lot.
Some weeks my schedule is so jam-packed. I have 6 or 8 clients per day for weeks on end. And then as they rotate out, if you will, then it's a little quiet for a while and then it picks up again. So we stay very, very busy.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically, probably could say every day for the last 5 years, you've helped someone get beyond a point in their life where they were stuck, or where they were, God knows what.
Right.
And that is outstanding.
Exactly. It's just been just like I said, just having a conversation. Hey, what's going on? Tell me what's happening. Hey, come in, have a cup of coffee. Let's just chat. Mm-hmm. And that just, it's slow, but that's just the process. And it's the most amazing process. Wow. And it works.
Yeah.
And that's what we love about it. Yeah.
Throughout our conversation today, I keep being reminded of a song lyric by an artist named Trevor Hall, and he sings the song, "You Can't Rush Your Healing."
No.
And I just keep being reminded of that today, that especially in this arena, this is not here's a shot and a pill and we'll put a Band-Aid, we'll wrap some gauze around it and out you go. So the numbers actually seem small, because I'm sure you're meeting with many people more than once. This is not a, hey, here's the ticket, go here and get your pill. It's a continual and gradual process of allowing people, because I mean, we all like to tell our stories more than once, and we're going to evolve. We're going to learn through the repetition of, and having that sympathetic ear that, wow. Cool.
So what they've learned is their journey is their journey. It's not my journey. It's not the next guy's journey. Your journey, your healing journey is very individualized. Yeah. And if you have to come here every week for the next 3 years to heal, that's what we're here for. Right. If you come here for 8 weeks and you feel better and you feel like you've completed whatever you needed to complete, that's fine. But there are some that have been coming weekly for the last 2 years and still working on stuff. And what they find is, since they're cleaning up so much, they're just constantly unpacking and cleaning, unpacking and cleaning. And you could see them go from all curled up to standing tall, and their broad shoulders, and they're smiling. And that just makes my heart sing.
Yeah. Now that I mean, that model, and I think, the sundry services you have in that 52 organizational structure, if you will, or conglomerate of different organizations, if we take that model and start looking at addiction or any other kind of malady that is facing our people, it's just a brilliant idea, because the things if we, like you were saying, Robert, we got the one pill solution for everything, whether it's, but it's a holistic view.
Right. But it's not just one pill. That's what's so amazing.
Exactly.
These guys come in with 10, 15, 20 pills for this or that. And we're like, oh, no, baby. No.
You get you all that stuff.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
I love it. It feels like there are so many possibilities, that you are touching so many lives.
Right.
And I'm reminded of a phrase that I heard in my practitioner training and over the years, that the work we do is giving the client back to themselves.
Exactly.
you're providing the space, the opportunity, the resources, the listening for people to regain the truth of who they have always been, that may have gotten clouded or may have gotten damaged, seriously damaged through the events and the experiences of their lives.
Right. And what I find is some of the people, like I said, that come from very traumatic childhoods, so we help them clean up that piece so they clean up their adult life. When they figure out that, you know, as a child, I this and that, I'm like, well, that's not the truth. The truth is you were loved and you were cared about. It was just a different package than what I was loved and cared about and somebody else. Yeah. But let's clean up all that trauma. And we do that through tapping. And then it just helps them clean up through their adulthood. And it's just an amazing process.
And now, just on the tapping, are there different tapping techniques for different types of things, or in different places, or how does that work?
So there's 48 different techniques, but what I use the most is the basic recipe. Is you start off with your setup statement, you say that 3 times, and then you do the basic tapping points on your face and on your chest. And then later on, when something very traumatic comes up, we can use either the movie technique where they process it through their head like a movie, or the tell your story technique, which is they're telling the story, they come to a block, we clean up that block, and then we continue on with the story. But there's very different techniques, and starting them with basic is the best, and then moving them on later on to something else if it's so desired. And so what they understand is they don't just have to come to me as the coach. They can do this on their own, anytime, anywhere. And especially when they're having nightmares, they wake up and they do the tapping piece with themselves, calm themselves down, and go right back to sleep. Or clean up all of that trauma, but it's coming up to be healed. So we talk about what that all means. Yeah.
As you were sharing, I'm also reminded that not all of these folks' concerns, not all of their trials are based out of their service.
No.
Many of them took earlier traumas, maybe unknown trauma, most often I would assume unknown traumas, and brought those into the military with them.
Right.
And then that becomes a compound effect on top of what was already there.
Exactly. So if you have a childhood trauma and then they send you to a combat zone, you're trying to deal with this, but now you're trying to deal with what's in front of you. And it makes life pretty tough. But if you can clean this up, then going to combat or going to overseas, even just being in an overseas assignment, it helps them deal with whatever they need to deal with, and knowing that they're okay and they're going to be okay. Yeah. So like serving in Korea, it's very tough to serve in Korea. It's not like the Middle East, but it's a pretty tough assignment. And you come back and you're like, "Ooh, I survived," because you just never know from day to day, because it's still considered on the cusp of a combat zone, but not so much. But it's still kind of scary there.
I would imagine you still get hazard duty pay if you went there.
Not in Korea. When I went there in 75, they had just done away with the hazardous duty pay, but it's, you go up to the DMZ and it's realistic. It's like, this is real. Here we are. We're right on the DMZ, and anything can happen at any moment. Wow. And that's the unpredictability about being in South Korea. Yeah.
Hey, folks. You're here. This is part of New Thought Today on the New Thought Media Network. We want to share the Graceful Passages. This is their Facebook page. So if you're heading out on Facebook, you can do a search there for Graceful Passages Institute. And this page should show up. You'll see Donna's smiling face there as well. We're going to take a quick break and say thank you to our sponsors and our committed givers, and share a little bit more about what we're doing here on New Thought Media Network. Please stay with us. We're going to take another quick break and be back in just a moment with more As soon as I find the right, oh, I'm in the wrong section here. Here we go. Let's find the right. It's always fun to find exactly what I'm supposed to be doing versus what I think I'm doing, and I'm in the right section, but now I can't find the right video. Folks, you get to experience what it's like to do live broadcasting. Here we go. We're going to be back in just a minute. Stay with us here on New Thought Today.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Om Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferlin Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a super special thank you to Dr. Tracy Brown, RSCP. Thanks for being a super donor. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.
Yes. Thank you, dear ones, for being a part of the New Thought Media Network. For all of our committed givers and sponsors, we appreciate you. If you'd like to become a part of that group, just head on over to the website, ntmedia.org. Click on the donate button. Make it a monthly donation, and we will make sure that you get onto our next version of the Thank You movie. All right. Before we go here today, Reverend Donna, tell folks how can they get in touch, and what's the best way to help or get involved?
So the best way to get in touch is just call me on my cell phone, 360-707-8475, and or go on Facebook and send me a message and say, hey, I need to talk to you. I have a question for you, or can we get together and we'll schedule an appointment.
Yeah. And if you head to their Facebook page, folks, you can see there they have a chat box. Is anyone available to chat? I have a question. Can you help? So I'm sure that goes directly to Donna's inbox, and you'll be able to get the support. And if you have friends who are veterans that you know are either in crisis or just looking for resources, help, or someone to talk to, get them in touch with Reverend Donna and the Graceful Passages for Vets organization. All right.
Because we can refer out, especially if you're from another area. We have connections outside of ourselves, so we can always connect vets to programs and places that they need to be.
Yeah, I have this vision of small groups in all major cities doing this work, and a continually expanding network of folks in your organization out there helping folks. So if you're in a location and you'd like to get something started and perhaps clone what Reverend Donna is doing, I'm sure she'd be open to that conversation as well. So please reach out.
Absolutely.
All right, we've only got a few more moments here today, folks, before everything wraps up. And so we're going to do a quick version of final thoughts. Rev Z?
Yeah, final thought is I love the structure, the everything about your program. And I think the final thoughts is everybody needs to duplicate at least some type of effort like this for one person. Even if it's just for one person, we're gonna make a tremendous progress.
That's it.
Yeah. Reverend Donna, final thoughts?
Always be able to tell your story, find someone to tell your story, because there is someone who wants to listen. And especially in Science of Mind, we have these wonderful people called practitioners, and they're more than willing to hear you tell your story. So if you can't find me, find a practitioner.
Nice.
Yeah. I feel we've covered a lot of ground here today, and number one key is be able to listen. Number two key is feel free to share if you need somebody to listen to you. And I'm really inspired by what Z is saying. We don't have to have organizations. We don't have to have special training. Listening can be enough. And whether it's a vet or someone living on the streets or drug addiction or any of the addictions out there, listen first and listen more. Put down the cell phone and listen, I think is my final thought for the day. So.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, Reverend Donna, I hope you'll come back and visit us again sometime.
I would love to.
I can't wait to hear the story that you've found your property and that we can send a donation to help purchase that property, or maybe we'll sponsor a tiny house when you get there. So we'll look forward to having you back again and again.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. Folks, on behalf of myself and my co-host here, Reverend Elzio, we want to thank you for being with us today. This is the New Thought Media Network. We'll be back again next week. And Z, do we know who our guest is next week?
Next week? It should be, we're supposed to have the Reverend Doctor, right?
We're supposed to have the big guy himself, Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith, here on New Thought Today next Tuesday afternoon, talking about celebrating our soul and the upcoming conference. So please let your friends know, share, like, and subscribe so that we can let more and more folks know what here it is, right? That's what we'd like you to do. Subscribe, like, and comment. We'll be back again next week with more of New Thought Today. Until then, peace and richest blessings.
Peace.